52 Topics with Frank Fiordilino. Ep.11, Ridgewood Boys. Frank, what's going on? What's this all about?
Hey, what's up, buddy? Not much. I was thinking about it, and I was saying, if I ever had to propose a series about kids I grew up with, I probably start around this time, music wise, or even getting to know these kids the way I did. And where do I start? Probably around, even though I lived in the neighborhood about 4 years at the time, I went to school with most of these kids I'm going to mention. We went to a Catholic school. This is pre-high school, by the way. So it was the innocent time in our life. A lot of stuff happens eventually that, draws us into like darker paths. But this was a happy time. It was a good time. I got emotional just thinking about these times. We had a roller rink right outside my house. Um, and a lot of these kids were doing different things that normal kids do. We would like the guys that I introduced are basically the kids first generation, or a couple like me were born on the other side, but came from the Bushwick area. I would say 9 out of 10 actually came from the Bushwick area with their families, small, and we kind of like assembled in Ridgewood, and it became more like more and more an Italian neighborhood. When I got there in '79, there was a lot of Irish kids, German kids, first generation German actually. So it got more and more looking like Bushwick back in the day. So
What
this is
year are we talking about around? When is this transition for you?
about 83. So I meet most of these kids in school. I know them. We're friends, but we're not close. The close group was basically the kids I'm gonna mention. There was Paul. There was my friend Nat. I usually call him Nick. We'll call him Nat. His cousin Nat. They hung out together with another kid, Mikey. We called him Gookie because he looked Asian somewhat. But all these kids. There was this kid Enzo. Anthony Genoa, the Pete McConte, I heard has died in the past. They were all together. This was what made up the Ridgewood Juniors. Actually, there was to be a Ridgewood Junior. There actually was Ridgewood Boys, but these guys were like basically the ones before I got there and started palling around with them, and that was I guess I started palling around with Paul Ragusa around 83, 84, right? I think after his dad gets picked up. And at that time, we were doing things that kids were doing. And what did I miss? There was a lot of kids shit that came after. So Paul had a nephew, Fabio, that people gravitated towards these guys, but they were a world difference. There was a big we'll get to that between both of them. And he had his set of friends, and they ended up coming maybe a year, 2 years after around, maybe a little bit more. But for the quarter group, we had this kid Buffalo I played baseball with at Miraculous Metal, and he was a big, tall kid. One of the few non-Italian kids that we hung out. There was Pete also hung out with us that I ended up hanging out late in life, and later on in life, in my 20s. But we all did the things the kids used to do. We used to there was a roller rink around there. We hung out in the corner. We had jackets, right? They were white and red, and we were juniors at the time. The senior guys were a little bit older. I'd say maybe 3-4 years. And there was there was this one kid. My dad loved him, Black Alex. He had gotten in trouble later. He was a Ridgewood boy. His couple of buddies he hung out with. It was Frank Ferrara. There's Adi and Robbie. They were older, and they had and then this kid, other guy Popeye. He always twitched and shit. I remember him, and I get emotional just thinking about it. But it was a good time. It was an innocent time. They were getting into a little trouble, the older guys, but nothing like what we turned out to be. And then the kids right below us. So they talk about Anthony Aiello too being a Ridgewood. Well, he was a lot younger, but he actually ended up being a leader of his group. I call it little younger group. So that's how we started. But a lot of things were going on. and there was a lot of things at Ridgewood that were going on at the time. There was Madison Park had their little crew that was on Madison Street, and there was his brothers of a lot. They were getting in trouble. They were a lot old. They were not a lot older. They were about 4 or 5 years. And when you're young, that's pretty much a lot. They were getting in trouble. Um, you had 88th Street, 93 Park, all in Ridgewood, and then you had like the Dome in Glendale that a lot of Glendale guys and Woodhaven guys used to hang out. John Alite talks about it. The Dolphin brothers hang out there. So there was a lot of this kind of prerequisite gang stuff going on. And there was some violent incidents, but not with us at that time. We were into breakdancing. The music was different. We were listening to a lot of stuff that basically was out at the time. The pre-breakdancing days, I don't know. I remember going to see Flashdance just to see that part where they breakdance and Just Begun comes on. And we went to the movies probably like, this group of kids I'm talking about a couple of times just to see that part while we were gradually getting into it. Was I a good breakdancer? No. Paul was this other kid, Enzo Coletti, that we hung out. He was pretty good too. Fabio was really good. We had this other Puerto Rican Italian kid that I grew up with, Pops. He was very good as well. So we would just, this was a fun time when we weren't playing baseball in the summertime. That they were very good soccer players too. My friend of mine was a very good goalie, and all this stuff was going on until we get into the high school. High school changes, forms us into knowing that. I mean, in our neighborhood, nobody really fucked with us because they knew who we were. Like not us personally, but our families. But when that was gone in 84 and then like in 85 when I start high school, and so does most of my friends, a lot of things start changing. Like a lot of the old guys, the old heads that used to be around are not around, and it changes a lot of people. Paul in particular. And I feel that a lot had to do because he good kid, smart kid. He takes a lot of bad credit from fucking articles that come out in the 90s. But if you knew him, a very, very, very intelligent kid.
Yeah, I want to go back actually, if you don't mind, Frank. I want to
Sure.
just go back to let's talk about the 80s because obviously you talk about being influenced by the culture that's happening. Obviously, there's a culture shift, hip hop, break dancing. You guys are experiencing that. But I want to go back to two individuals you just mentioned, Paul Ragusa, Fabio Bartolotta. Paul being Fabio's uncle. You don't often get an uncle so close in age to a nephew. I don't know if you want to break down that dynamic,
Well, it
but if
wasn't
you
rare. I mean, his oldest sister, he has an older sister, and he's the youngest brother. So that's how you get that.
right,
Like
right,
I have a nephew that's 5 years different. It
yeah,
wasn't rare to hear in Italian families.
Italian thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Now,
not rare at all. Well, they
what
close?
was
Not really. They had their own set of friends, but at the end of the day, they were family. You understand?
right. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm just broadly speaking, you don't generally get that.
Totally
But
different, though. One was
right,
one
right.
was what you see, what you get. The other one could be weasel like a
Well, I was
lot
gonna
of.
say when you meet Ragusa, you meet him at a young age. You meet Fabio at a young age. Two guys that would go on to lives of criminality. Maybe Ragusa being a little more infamous, especially with the FBI wanted and all this other
Mhm.
crazy shit. But what is your first impression of a guy like Ragusa? You say if you know him, he's
Leadership
aces, but
qualities. A lot of people gravitated towards him. Good kid. He gradually becomes bitter and angry because a lot of people, like let's say his dad. It was meet his dad in '89. Good man, very good man, smart man. Um, he was around in his life, and they had a good core of people around him. And then you know what? This happens in the mob a lot, and I'm going to explain. When your family, when you're a young kid, and this happened to Anthony Aiello as well. When you're a young kid and your dad's on the street and he's got much respect, people are all over there kissing ass and everything. And then when they go away, they don't abuse. Sometimes they do, but this wasn't their case. Neither one of them. Um, but they don't look at you anymore like the same way they used to. So people disappear, especially when they get killed, or something like that. It's a game changer. Probably the Colombo kids could fucking attest to that, or Galante's daughters. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
just
Well,
that
did you guys have this preconceived idea when you met that, yeah, we all know you don't have to talk about it. We all know our families are involved in that life. And in furtherance of that, Paul's father, Filippo, what family or of any was he with?
we're not gonna get deep into that,
Right.
but they're affiliated with an American family, obviously.
Okay.
But their ties come from back home a lot.
Back home.
And
Okay.
that's another thing about it too. You would hear all these Italian American things going on, and to credit him, basically, he's like, "You guys fucking." He wouldn't say it, but he wouldn't kiss anybody's ass at all. Matter of fact, he felt that he was from the other side, even though he was born here too. Um, and the more and more we were getting the American Gambino things thrown in our face through TV and media with the Gaudis and what was going on, the more it got people more bitter. Until we were victims of a couple of incidents, until we became more like, okay, we're getting older, we're gonna get there. You know what I mean? Don't worry about it. We started doing our own thing.
Interesting life goals you got there, Frank. I can't
Mhm.
blame you. I'm not, it's just
It started. We were just doing everything else. We played soccer, we played
right.
baseball, we played and then little by little it was dog eat dog, and then that's what it got into. There was a lot of guys there. Joe DeLeo, he started coming around too. He was one of the bigger of the guys. I don't know if he was so much part of our little our clique at one point, which I come into a little bit later. Shit. Or more of the Ridgewood boys, guys, like with the Salicardi, Artie, Robbie. There was Bobby Wiziak, who a little bit older. He was part of the Ridgewood boys kind of crew. There was a kid Kenny who ends up getting killed. There was a kid Benny Mosquito who ends up getting into it with Howie. I remember back in the I don't remember, I remember it clearly actually. They jumped Howie, and Howie ends up shooting him later on in life. And what saves him, he's got one of those Guido medallions.
Yeah. This is Howie Santos, correct?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Howie Santos, and it hits him right in the uh in the emblem. They were more like that crew right there was more like the older guys were before us were more like a bat and kind of pipe type of guys where we elevated the game when we got to that stage, and we became anything goes type. I mean anything. But you know, the more we went, and we were doing everything, but the breakdancing was fun. But then we would go from like what do you call when you go off against another crew, and then that would always end
Yeah.
up in
Yeah.
fucking punches. The up rocking game, the
Right. Right.
music at the time, they used to the up rocking is a form of breakdancing when you dance and you kind of like pretend you're fighting, but you're actually doing moves, and it's going with the music. It's rhythm. Like Sex Machine was a big up rocking song. What else? The Mexican was a good one. Babe Ruth was original Mexican, and then what happened? The composer of the music, and then what happened was Jelly Bean Benitez made the mix, and that fucking caught fire. That was especially in the Funhouse days. Seabacks, One More Shot. There was a lot of good stuff. The house music came after by the time we were going to club 16, 17. But at that age, we were it was an adolescent stage. So we were doing a lot of things that just regular kids were doing, a couple of fights here and there. Um, I guess I one time one of the game changers as a kid was like I get thrown out of a candy store. I'm a fucking, I don't know, like 13, 14. And the guy was kind of weird. The guy well in the candy store. He didn't like the fact that I was touching a girl that was my girlfriend, you know what I mean? And he's like, "Hey, not here, whatever." I said, "All right, whatever. No big deal, okay, whatever." And then he just ended up throwing me out. after going there for a couple of years. I think he liked the kid. That's the fucking funny thing about it, creepy thing, kind of.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah. I got together with boy. Said, hey, we gotta fucking go over there and take the windows out of that fucking place. So we went there at nighttime, and I forgot who else was with us, and we just fucking broke every window in the joint. I was 13, maybe. I think I was about 13.
Yeah.
And the next day, I made the biggest mistake in crime you can make. I went to the scene of the crime just to look. And the guy caught me looking like fucking, he had to be him. He threw him out. So he gets his son that's like 22, 23 years old. He's driving this Fiero, stops by on my way home and, works me over pretty good. I go home and my boy's like, what the fuck happened to you? You're all taught. You come, from Catholic school. I said, this motherfucker. I told him, he goes, all right, come on, I'll go up there. So he goes up there with a couple of his Puerto Rican friends from Bushwick because my brother still, operated over there. And the guy just took off. He went in the store and left. And I got, to make a long story short, that was one of our first fucking encounters. So that was the type of guy he was,
Yeah.
Anytime you got in trouble, it wasn't even like a question. Let's go,
Yeah.
It got like that too. When we lost a lot of these guys through the pizza connection cases and everybody started getting arrested. My brother used to fill in a lot. I'll give him that. The fucking one I can't stand for every time we got in trouble. So he had a group of friends. So it'd either be if we were in trouble, Paul was in trouble, anybody was in trouble, he would fill in and try to take care of it as best as he could. But we were going we were hurting in a home front, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, tell me about the roller rink, Bob. This is the Oasis that you've spoken to me about?
Yeah, it was fun. We had a Saturday night, I think, or a
Yeah.
Friday night. It was like an 8:30 to an 11:30. That was on nighttime. And it was the graffiti age and
Right, right. Kind of a dying scene. You don't really see the roller rinks around anymore.
no, but they weren't for roller skating at that point. They were for breakdancing, and you used to get
Okay.
a whole bunch of people from Bushwood coming down. It was usually on Friday nights, and that place would be packed. And you'd have the windmills, not the windmills, the tops they used to wear so you could glide better. I wasn't that good of a break dancer, so I'm not gonna brag about that shit. But a lot of my friends, well, they won contests, they were pretty good. And as we get older, that scene was getting old for us. We try to fucking neighborhood discos. Me and Paul used to try to get into the arena all the time. Sometimes they let us in, and sometimes you had to be 18 to get in back in the day. I didn't have no hair on my face. The guy used to laugh at me. He goes, how old are you? And like, oh, 17. He goes,
Yeah.
try again. 18. He goes, okay, go ahead. So he let us in. We'll have probably 2 drinks and then go home. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
That was what we used to do. But it was the age of innocence. And that was, high school start. I think high school and fighting in our high school level became more complicated where we met a lot of people that we ended up being friends with in our 20s as well, like the Antonucci's. And we had a big brawl on a Halloween one time that 2 neighborhoods came together. Mob guys had to get involved to fucking like calm it down. But that's what it came to. But these kids were there. The first wave of what later I guess becomes the Giannini people hung out in Giannini Cafe, the Giannini crew, whatever. But then there's Fabio's clique that was more of a public school clique that comes after. And that's a couple of years after. And that's Tabita, Shalara, fuck, Kid Massimo, Riff. There was Joe's brother, Raymond DeLeo, that started coming out too. So some of them got themselves in real big trouble, like myself. And some of them, just like the other kids I grew up with, ended up becoming good dads. They were all good dads, I guess. But you know what I mean? They went on a straighten up. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, how's that dynamic? Because I find that interesting. Like, if you're all friends, right? You all bond over your friendship growing up together. But let's say, I don't know, it's 1995 or 94. You're all deep into criminality, but you might still have your buddies in the neighborhood who are working a union job or being, they're not getting in trouble. They're not criminals. How is the relationship with that? You see each other on the street? Is there do you feel like a thing from them? Like they know
Well,
that you're a criminal and they're doing good? Is there like
there
a
was
weird
one kid that hung
tension?
out with us, and he was looking to get in trouble in his life. His name was John. So what happened to John was he was at the pizza shop one time, and he was starting a little bit of a trouble, whatever. He just like anybody, but a little bit more. And they stuck a gun to his head and told him to get in the fucking car. They took him on a ride and they beat his ass for about 4 hours, 5. We were looking for him. We were, I don't know, 14, 15 years old. I say about 15 because this is the time. Once the high school fucking level came in, then a lot of other bullshit came with it. And then after that, that was like an awakening for me. Say, you know what? What's going to happen next? I'm going to tough kid still. Just started working with his dad, put his head together, got married, had kids. He would come around. It wasn't like he wasn't coming around no more, but he kind of learned a lesson quick. And maybe, I don't know, maybe that would have, I needed something like that. You know what I
Right,
mean? To
right,
fucking
right.
wake me up.
Well,
But
I asked too because, like, let's say when I was in my 20s, like, I didn't really have my shit together, and a couple of my friends didn't. And every once in a while, we'd run into a kid in the neighborhood that really had his shit together, and I would almost kind of feel like weird, like, "Hey, what are you up to, Brad?" I'd be like, I'm kind of this and that," and I would feel uncomfortable about it, knowing that somebody was doing better or doing something real in their life. So, was there like a thing like that, or you guys were just a bunch of criminals? You didn't give a fuck, or did you
no, 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 no.
feel
We always
anything?
respected the kids we grew up with. Like a lot of the kids that we grew up when we were the juniors went other
Right.
places. I'm not going to mention. It's like one kid started experimenting with drugs, so he decided to hang out in the part of town with other kids that
Okay.
were doing drugs. And a
Right.
dear friend, I played sports with him. He got better, I guess. There was other kids who just started working and fucking say, "Fuck this shit."
That's what I'm
Um,
saying, like, what I'm saying is, did you feel insecure about being a criminal, or were you just like, "Whatever, I'm
no,
committed"?
no, no. Too young to feel insecure. Maybe feeling like I was heading where I wanted to be, and this
Okay,
is
interesting, yeah.
very early. A lot of stuff happens around this time
Mhm.
in our lives. And then well, if you're the guy who still wants to be in that, we had so many recruits coming in within 2 years younger or 3 years younger, always wanted to do something with you. I shit when Anthony came of age, me and him did a burglary together, Aiello. So it was always somebody there for us. One left, two came in.
Right, right, right.
There was always new faces, and then there was the recruiting process, which they recruited us into like having people. I had my uncle, and then I had Vito Grimaldi. All these guys had different guys. And
So,
that's how. To be fair to Paul, he didn't care.
right, right, right.
So that's where we were at a young age. We weren't by no means fucking poor. We weren't rich, but we didn't need anything. Eventually our family made sure we had. So that's what makes it even worse. Sometimes people are like, well, you guys didn't grow up. Yeah, I know, but what happened? And a lot shit happens. And that's the same to say about other people in other neighborhoods too, like Bensonhurst or anything like that.
Right, exactly.
But that's where I would start. I would just show you the characters who I was close to at the time, who I become close to eventually, who they become close to, the guys I mentioned, and the ones that came about. And but that at that point we were searching for what we wanted in life, and we didn't have the right people around us.
Well, you say you didn't have the right people
And I'm not
around
talking about I'm not
you.
talking about they weren't there anymore. They were and when I mean the right people, because they would give us a kick in the ass too. You either had people who used us, or you had people who just didn't give a fuck about us because our family members weren't there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, I never felt I personally never felt the kind of commodity that you get from trying to be mentored in that life that I got from the few times I met somebody like, I don't know, Paul's dad, for example, to post to my uncle who was, I don't know, just fucking non-existent unless could make him money some way. You know what I mean?
Right, right,
It
right.
was just it had that felt of being used feeling.
Yeah.
I don't
So
know. So
No, I hear you. It's
I
just
didn't get with
weird.
my, which what I didn't get with Tony Giordano.
Mhm.
He looked out, and he's looked out for my brothers too. Even after my one brother died, we had that. We had that. My brother, my older brother, I mentioned, the one who's still alive. He had um good role models before they got locked up too, and he kind of got screwed by ones that were around. So that's what I mean.
I understand. I
They,
understand.
they were more they were more Messino-esque by a lot. Once he was there, they said, "Hey, fuck it, let's go with what we got."
Right, right, right. So ultimately you guys age, I mean, you get to high school age and
We
Ridgewood
go to different. There's
Juniors.
two high schools in our area. So there's Grover Cleveland, the one South Italian Joe goes
Yeah.
to. It's a different school by the time my friends go. And then there's Christ the King, where I went to, which we'll do an episode on that, which was by 1985. If you weren't from Howard Beach and you had family in the mob, that didn't count, because the only ones that counted were the ones from Howard Beach. They were just they kind of, I don't know if they were allowed to act that way, or they just, it was like rooting for a team for them and not a fucking secret society.
Yeah, it was Gotti mania. There was no hiding from it.
There was double kissing and fucking freshman and sophomore year going on. Like, what the fuck is going on here? Yeah, it was weird. Even if I would have raised, hey, yay, my family's in the mob, they'd be like, yeah, right.
Yeah, I get
Okay,
it.
buy it, and then I just go. But it was, that's the kind of feeling it was. And little by little, we made ourselves heard until, from gang fighting to eventually club fighting to eventually shootouts to eventually murder, bank robbery, everything. So it wasn't, it wasn't like people go, well, their families were all involved. No, we were pretty much on our own until people started going to bat for us. Of course, I become friends with other guys that their families were more involved and took more interest in them. My dad wasn't all that. After my brother dies in 77, my dad was already fucking on the fence being a nut. And it just, that took him to another fucking level. So, all I had with my brothers, actually, the ones that were, well, the one that's alive and the one that passed, and they went to bat for my friends as well. A lot of times, he had a Colombian brother-in-law who would fucking kill for us. That's another story. So we weren't like, if we got in trouble, we had a couple of people to go to bat, and we had to do it fucking discreetly too.
When did you guys graduate? Because you say
We
you started
didn't.
out as Ridgewood Juniors.
I
No, I
would
don't
have.
mean high school. I don't mean high school. I mean
Yeah,
like
I would have
you start out
89.
as Ridgewood Juniors and then you become Ridgewood Boys, so to
Right, and
speak.
then with that shit just goes out the window. We just
What's that?
became,
What's that? When is that? I mean, and you also said, what are you guys wearing? Like Letterman jackets, like varsity jackets?
I think by 15, 16, those
Okay.
jackets, we don't wear them anymore.
Oh,
Well,
you
by
used
high
to.
school, we don't wear them anymore.
Okay, you get rid of them. Okay.
Yeah, yes, yes,
All
yeah.
right. I understand.
Um, yeah, so a lot's going on. Some of us experimented with just like working for a living, who became a pizza man. I
Right.
became a coffee boy, if you will. A butcher. All these guys work different kind of jobs, and started making some money after that. We were gambling at my house. One night it was in my house. One night it was at Paul's house. We kind of had the same parents. I'd rather have them here than outside where we know where they're at. A lot of that was going on, but yeah, we were playing video games, man. We were just, it was innocence. I mean, I remember in high school, we were about to go to my house and play this baseball game we like to play on one of the when Nintendo was shot. And the next thing I know, they're shooting us, and Paul's like, run. And we're running 3 blocks to get to the house. So it was a little bit of we were getting there.
Yeah, were you saying you heard shots in the neighborhood one night when you guys were hanging out? Is that
No, 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 no. He's seen the actual. I heard the shot once I started running, but he's seen the actual guy. He goes, Frank, run, run. And then I started running, and then we ran, and he's really quick. and we ran from his block, which is Gates of Freshman, to mine, about a good 3 blocks, and we heard the shots.
Okay. Okay. Wow. Wow.
People
Yeah.
would wait for us in a corner sometimes, looking for him, and I'm like, oh fuck. But we had a little cubby hole, like we had it really well too. So I pulled out a knife. I said, "Come on, motherfuckers!" And they just got in their cars instead of running after us. They went around the block. By then, we were inside a cubby hole by his house.
Wait, I'm confused. Wait, they were shooting. They were trying to shoot at you guys.
No, they were trying to beat us up that night. That was
Oh,
different.
okay. I get
Yeah,
it. I get it. Okay.
yeah. They
Yeah.
go, come here, boy. I want to talk to you. I said, yeah, we'll talk to you. Come here. And we just took off. We were small guys compared to a lot of these big guys, believe me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it was a different time. Brawls. I mean, we had brawls sometimes that lasted for fucking. People used to come to our neighborhood to find like 5, 6 of us, and people used to come down fire escapes, coffee shops, everything. By the time these guys came with like 20 guys, they were outnumbered at least by 40 to 20. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned Howard Beach before. What would be the big difference between? I mean, let's put Gotti to the side, Gotti mania, whatever.
Yeah.
What would be the big difference between a Howard Beach and a Ridgewood? Would you say Ridgewood is a little more grittier or a more grittier
Oh,
type
definitely.
character? Where
Yeah.
Howard Beach, like these kids have nice homes and they're
Yeah. Well,
trying
we're not too
to,
far from like Bushwick, and
of course, yeah,
that's another thing. Um, they kind of don't know what to expect. Kind of like, they ain't gonna touch us because from here. But then, a couple of times, one of them, or even Ozone Park. Woodhaven was more like our neighborhood, but just they were just more, I don't know, physical than us. But like looking at them, but Ozone Park, even parts of Ozone Park, but not so much Howard Beach. They were a little bit sheltered, but protected by also who was around for them at that time.
right. The older
We
guys,
went about ways doing things like if we had a problem with a neighborhood, and it was one of those where they're gonna go to their guy if they get it, if they get the short end of the stick, and we basically get the short end of the stick, we used to eliminate that and send people. Like my brother used to go there with a couple of his friends to take care of it. They go, well, who you have a problem with? This guy, not know who the fuck got him. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And that a lot of that would go on, and it would be settled, and they would kind of get the message, send one of their guys, look, I don't know what happened, but we want to squash it, and we'd be like, yeah, okay.
Right.
There was the guy who one time, what was his name, he ended up cooperating. We were kids, and we ended up getting into it. And we ended up being friends with this neighborhood too. The Williamsburg, there was like 20, 25 of them, and we got the short end of the stick, but not bad. My brother's brother-in-law ends up getting the message, and there's a kid, Anthony Bruno. He's the guy who shot Cookie in the head. So they took a ride down there, and while they took a ride down there, they're looking for these guys. They're like, that's the only name that came back. He goes, who's Anthony Bruno? And this guy I mentioned, George, he's dead now. They ended up killing the Colombian guy. He's got his buddies there. And he goes, I'm Anthony Bruno. He goes, okay, good. So they put the fucking guns on him, and they beat his ass for about 20 minutes. He did it like the old Brooklyn Star. Who's looking for me? You know what I mean? We are. Come here. And George had a way of dressing up like he was Sicilian or Italian because he liked the Italian fashions. That they were like some Sicilian came down and beat Anthony's ass, but they stuck 4 fucking guns on him. So the guys from Greek Point reached out to the guys from Ridgewood and the older guys, and it got settled.
Interesting. Hey, you know what? I was thinking about I was actually thinking about somebody who we spoke about on this channel before. And I believe you referred to this person as the first peer of you guys who you recall losing his life. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm talking about Ralph Shula.
Mm-hmm.
When did you meet him?
I knew Ralph since I first moved to the neighborhood, 79, 80. His dad would hang out at the Cafe Yellow eventually, which was that cafe we're talking about. He actually hung out in the Lakata Cafe, his dad, and was there the night those guys got killed.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah, his dad was not His dad wasn't a mob guy, but he was a, he was he liked to
Neighborhood guy.
gamble,
Yeah.
and he was around. Good man, good man. So I knew Ralph for a long time. We went to the same Catholic school. But he was also one of those guys that hung out with older guys. You understand? Even though he was a year older than us, he liked to hang out with the older kids. So he was more like the Ridgewood boy type of guy.
Okay.
There's another guy that I mentioned, Kenny, that used to like to hang out with them. Um, he was like a he ends up getting killed too, and he was always around. But yeah.
What was his thing though? He just stepped. I mean, how was he as a young guy? Because I guess it seems
An
like
asshole.
an asshole. Okay, because I was gonna say, it seems like either he
Yeah,
progressed or he always was gonna turn into this person who was gonna step on too many toes.
he could be
Oh,
good
well.
for fucking 3 days, and then he would be fucking just come out with some freaking. I think, yeah, he would do stupid shit sometimes and put people in bad situations.
Really? Okay. And he was, I guess, being mentored by Bobby Glasses, right?
Eventually, he stole from Bobby Glasses. He stole the fireworks from Rob Iavani, and he had to give it back. He took these two kids with him to go rob with him. What was his name? One was Mike Prush, and this other kid, Bobby Finnegan.
Okay.
I think his name was Bobby. Finnegan was sure his last name. And they went to rob his place. They ended up finding out who it was. They give Finnegan a beating. Rafi ends up paying for the stuff. They tax those kids about 1,000 each for stealing it. And he becomes close to Bobby. Actually, me, Paul, and Ralph in '89 go there to want to start a booking operation, a 50% booking operation. And his office was on top of a mechanic shop, and that's where I meet Bobby. And us three went together, and that was about '89. I remember.
You mentioned Rob Iavani, and I'd be remiss not to mention this, Frank, because I'm laughing. I'm just
Every
fucking
time I hear
laughing.
the name, I laugh too. Don't worry about
I'm
it.
laughing saying it. So Rob Iavani, I mean, this is a guy who would actually be outed as appearing on the television program The Biggest Loser. This is documented. Can you tell me a little bit about this guy?
Yeah, he was a character. So like he dressed in like adult clothing in high school. He was a senior when I was like a freshman. Always getting in trouble, gambling, everything, until he started taking bets. He got into everything from Christmas trees to cigarettes to loan sharking to swindling. But at first, he was just a fucking degenerate gambler, which he was always a degenerate gambler. But then he started making money, and he's another one of those guys that Bobby really liked a lot. And him and Ralph, even though Ralph robbed him of the fireworks, eventually became friends, and they palled around a lot. I remember he came into like losing 25 grand one time, so he got Ralph to go to his parents to pretend Ralph was the guy wanted that 25,000. You know what I
Uh-huh.
mean? And they gave Ralph the money in a week, or else, like, I get it.
Yeah.
So he was that guy. He was a funny guy.
You called him Big Head, right? Is that his nickname, Big Head?
Yeah. I mean, he looked like an octopus, but he's a good guy. I liked him. He's Neapolitan. He was a really good guy, funny guy. But yeah. That was Rob. That was Rob. These guys were the type of guys Bobby kind of love to have around, or love to hate to have around. But he got. I guess he did it for fucking comedic value. Not Rob. Rob was more of a serious earner compared to Rob.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. No, I just laughed
Yeah,
because
it was like
I
a fucking
remember that story coming out. I just
like Looney Tunes in that place. Howie used to hang out there too,
yeah.
and it was that place was fucking. You want to talk about having a sitcom? That's the joint.
This is Bobby's place. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where
Fucking
where
cat.
was that? That was on Cooper, you said?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yep. But that's
Interesting.
what was going on at the time. We'll talk about high school, and then eventually there's a part two to this, and
Yeah.
what happens, and us getting in trouble, and eventually we go from there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny, you think like you say like the places like Looney Tunes, and then I recall you referring to I think the Bananas at one point was like this weird band of misfits, like these strange fucking characters. Like whether you talk about like the Messino guys, you know what I'm saying?
Well,
Sure, you
yeah. I
guys.
mean, you look what you're dealing with. Tommy Karate's people at Avenue U, they had a
Yeah,
fucking monkey, shit like that. But they were very violent. You see, that was a violent crew right there.
right.
The ones Bobby had weren't violent. They were just a bunch of degenerate gamblers hanging out in one place.
Okay.
That maybe one or two guys were capable of doing this and that, but that was about it. It was more you want to pass your day. It was a fun place to hang out in. It really was.
Right, right. And I would love to maybe do something on Bobby one day, but let me ask you about him because obviously, he ends up going down for something he did in his younger years at
Sure.
that Irish bar, a homicide over
Hmm.
there. But you never saw him like that, right? You never thought of
Never,
him as somebody that was like a violent type guy to, and I understand he was a lot younger. You
never,
never know these things
never talked
happen.
about. Never.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I didn't even know why I was testifying that fucking case. All it was about was gambling because the baccarat game. But I guess they thought of it as more than I did. That's not my job. That's their job to
Right. Right.
put a case together. But I never even seen him raise his hands. I wasn't around him enough. Had he slapped, yeah, you heard if he had to slap somebody down, he would. He was quick to that, but you had to pitch him off a lot too. Oh fuck, what's that one? Joe Ferragamo one time. I walked in after though, and that was Howie and him. They just fucking he started hitting him. Howie jumped in and I walked in, but it was done at that time though. I didn't actually see him do it. Joe's the guy had mob wives.
Right. Right. He married. Who was he married to? Carla.
Paul. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Who I used to rob cars back in the day. We talk about that too. With I wasn't good at it. I wasn't good at a lot of things.
I was gonna say you always say you're not good at fucking things.
Nah, I was good at some things. I played sports better than most of my friends did.
Yeah. Okay.
Most, not all. They were good soccer players, so I'll give them that. But they couldn't play American sports as well as I did.
Okay. Okay.
But that's about it.
Now, what you guys do? You guys go to a lot of ball games, Met games.
Yeah,
Like,
we were Met fans. Me and Paul were Met fans.
you and Paul are
Kid
Met
Pops
fans.
was a
Okay,
Met
cool.
fan. I
So,
remember
yeah,
with the Kid Pops, I went to my first baseball game ever. That was in '79 with his aunt and an aunt's friend. I remember the score. I remember who played. The Dodgers played the Mets.
right.
Um,
Well, at
and
least you got to
so
enjoy '86, right?
yeah, of
Which we
course.
spoke about in the episode 1986. If you guys check it out, but that's cool.
Yeah, I was an Oiler fan all the time. Then I became a Jet fan, but I was always both, And I believe Paul's a Pittsburgh fan, Steelers fan.
Oh, okay, okay. Wow.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
there you go, there you go. That was the beginning of starting, and it was a great time, an emotional time. I get emotional when I think about it. A lot of people in and around them, no more. But
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So
Well,
to get better, like it's not going to be, and a little justice has to be done to this because a lot of people, I think in the '90s, a lot of bad articles came out,
yeah.
and there's ones to take credit for a lot of shit that happened, and there's ones not to take credit for it.
Uh huh.
You know, I own to what I did, but that it is what it is. So we'll go from there.
Right, right. And as you often say, you never put any of your friends, obviously 1996 indictment, obviously Vito Guzzo, obviously everything with
No,
Ragusa. You have nothing to do with any of these guys ever being
no.
incarcerated, which I'm sure you feel good about. But at the same time, how do you, and I know some of them cooperated, so let's leave those people out. But at the same time, like, how do you think those guys like a Ragusa would view you today? Like, well, let's say if he was even to watch it.
I don't care. I'm not trying to be. I'm just trying to tell it how it is. Not trying to stick it. I'm not olive branch. I'm not looking to go
No,
for
I understand that, of
start a
course.
reunion if that's what you mean.
No,
But,
I know that. I know you're not trying to do
yeah,
that.
yeah, 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 yeah.
I know,
But
but I
but at
also want to
these
put it
times,
out.
you feel for people. You know what I mean? Like the
Yeah,
last time he got fucking locked up, I feel like they entrapped him.
So do I. Yeah. So do
You know,
I.
we talked about that.
Yeah.
They took, you know, you see what somebody does a lot of time. You seen that fucking Tommy Reynolds thing, and then you fucking rattle him you rattle his ego,
Mm-hmm.
and then you
Mm-hmm.
set him up like that with two motherfuckers that were working for you already. You know, I felt that was fucking really, really low.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, they
Yeah,
didn't
I'm
waste
not
no
one of
they
those
didn't
that fucking sees a friend of mine an ex friend of mine rather, an ex friend of mine
of course.
get locked up, and then I'm like, oh well, fuck yeah, he's back in there now. I mean, I've been asked too, what do you think gonna happen when he comes out? I said, I hope he gets it together. That's all.
You can only hope for the best, right? For
Yeah, of
your old buddy.
course, of
Right. You can
course,
only
of
hope for the
course.
best. Yeah.
hmm You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. And we'll talk about that
like I
reclusive thing
told
one
you,
day.
I don't hang out with them. I don't go. I mean, I've been through a lot of hard times while I've been in the program. I work just like everybody else. I still work. So I could have got it easy. I could have went over there. Maybe they could have hooked me up with some whatever. I never did that. I never will.
Yeah, yeah, and the only reason why I bring up what with the Giannini guys and the guys who grew up with you not cooperating is it's just to just to put it out there that you did, and to some people that doesn't matter regardless. But as
No,
you
I'm
always say,
happy about that. Don't get me wrong.
of course, no,
There's
I know.
people
I
that
just
sitting on Joe Messina was does a rat's a rat. I get it. I mean, I have my own
right,
mother telling me, "Once you
right,
stink, you always stink." So when I thought about Messina, so
right, right,
I get how people feel, but at the same time, it's like I those guys they went through their shit. I didn't contribute to it.
right, and that's all I kind of just wanted to put out there. As you always say,
But
let's get that
we
shit
will talk
straight.
about the good times we had together for sure.
Right, 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 right. Yeah. So this is interesting. Obviously, we're not done with these characters. We always like to do a
No,
little
we just begun.
summary.
Actually, like the song goes, ba-da-ba-ba-ba, Um,
Exactly.
yeah, 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 yeah. So, but
Exactly. But
there we go.
we introduce them. We tell some early stories, building up to what is to come later. And I think people are going to appreciate this. Of course, we have people on this channel in the live chat and commenting that you knew from the neighborhood who still have respect for you, who still want to hear what you have to say. So I love that. I know you do, and I think people definitely get something out of this.
Yeah, yep, yep, yep. All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, episode 11, 52 topics with Frank Fiordilino, Ridgewood Boys. Thank you
All
for
right.
listening.
Yes, sir.